What started as laughter, late-night phone calls, and ride-or-die energy between Karlie Redd and Jessica White has now exploded into one of the messiest, most jaw-dropping fallout stories fans have ever whispered about. One minute they were sisters by choice, confiding secrets no one else was allowed to hear. The next, side eyes, blocked numbers, and accusations that cut way deeper than anyone expected. Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and suddenly everyone is asking the same question: how did this friendship turn so ugly, so fast? Insiders say the warning signs were always there, tiny cracks hidden behind Instagram smiles and red carpet hugs. But when those cracks finally split open, the fallout was loud, personal, and impossible to ignore. Whispers of betrayal started circulating. Screenshots allegedly went missing. And when one private conversation was rumored to have been repeated to the wrong person, all hell broke loose. Friends were forced to pick sides, the family was left divided, and the group chat? Completely silent. What makes this drama hit harder is that both women insist they were loyal to the end. Each claims the other crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Tears were shed, voices were raised, and fans watching from the sidelines couldn't believe how quickly love turned into war. Was it jealousy? A misunderstanding blown out of proportion? Or was this friendship doomed from the start? Buckle up, because this isn't just a falling out. This is a full-blown emotional implosion, and once you hear what really went down, you'll never look at this friendship the same way again. The night it all started, nobody was supposed to notice the tension. The lights were bright, the music was loud, and the smiles were just convincing enough to fool the room. Karlie leaned in for a hug, her arms stiff, her laugh half a second too late. Jessica felt it immediately. Something was off. Fans watching from the sidelines would later say they felt it too, that weird shift in energy where love turns cold. Emotions ran high long before a single word was spoken, and the friendship everyone admired was already cracking under pressure. Just weeks earlier, they were inseparable. Late-night calls turned into early-morning confessions. Jessica had trusted Karlie with things she never even told her own family. Fears about aging in the industry, doubts about loyalty, worries that people only loved her when she was useful. Karlie listened, nodded, reassured her, promised secrecy. Or at least that's what Jessica believed. Because when whispers started floating around, when strangers suddenly knew details they shouldn't, Jessica's heart dropped. Fans are shocked now, but back then, Jessica was just hurt and confused. The first confrontation wasn't explosive. It was quiet, dangerous in that way where every word feels loaded. Jessica asked a simple question, her voice shaking, asking if Karlie had said anything about their conversation to anyone else. Karlie laughed it off at first, calling it paranoid, saying people talk and stories grow legs. But Jessica wasn't convinced. She had receipts, half-heard comments, sideways looks that screamed betrayal. The room felt smaller as the air thickened, and even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Karlie's tone shifted. Her smile disappeared. She accused Jessica of insecurity, of projecting her fears onto everyone else. That's when emotions truly ran high. Jessica snapped back, saying loyalty isn't a suggestion, it's a promise. Voices rose. People nearby pretended not to listen, but everyone was listening. The family was left divided almost instantly, with mutual friends texting each other asking what was going on and who to believe. Days later, the drama escalated. Jessica went live online, not naming names but saying enough for fans to connect the dots. She talked about betrayal, about fake friends who smile in your face and sell your secrets behind your back. Fans are shocked by the rawness of her tears, by how personal it all felt. Karlie saw it within minutes. Rage replaced confusion. She felt attacked, exposed, and humiliated. In her mind, Jessica crossed a line first. That same night, Karlie fired back. Her words were sharp, calculated, and filled with just enough truth to sting. She hinted that Jessica was unstable, overly emotional, someone who twists narratives when she doesn't get her way. Emotions ran high all over again as fans picked sides in real time. Comment sections exploded. Hashtags trended. What was once a private friendship was now public property. Behind closed doors, things were even uglier. Mutual friends were dragged into group chats that felt more like battlefields. Screenshots were sent, then deleted. Accusations flew. One friend claimed Karlie had been venting about Jessica for months. Another insisted Jessica was looking for sympathy and attention. Nobody knew what was real anymore. The family was left divided, and trust became collateral damage. Jessica confronted Karlie again, this time with anger replacing sadness. She demanded honesty. She wanted names, timelines, proof. Karlie denied everything, then admitted some things, then accused Jessica of exaggerating. The back and forth felt endless. Every sentence reopened wounds. Fans are shocked when leaked audio hinted at this argument, with voices trembling and tempers flaring. Even without visuals, you could hear the heartbreak. What hurt Jessica most wasn't just the rumors. It was the feeling of being disposable. She accused Karlie of using her vulnerability as entertainment, of turning pain into power. Karlie shot back, saying Jessica always played the victim, that she thrived on chaos. Emotions ran high as both women cried, yelled, and talked over each other, neither willing to back down. By the end of that confrontation, something was clearly broken. There was no closure, no apology, no understanding. Just silence, blocked numbers, unfollowed accounts. Fans are shocked at how quickly the sisterhood dissolved. One moment they were planning trips together, the next they were strangers with shared memories and unresolved anger. As word spread, reactions poured in. Some fans defended Jessica, praising her vulnerability and honesty. Others stood firmly behind Karlie, calling her misunderstood and unfairly targeted. Even family members weighed in indirectly, posting cryptic messages about loyalty and snakes in the grass. The family was left divided not just between the two women, but within itself. And just when everyone thought the worst was over, a new twist began to form. A rumor surfaced that a third party had been involved all along, someone close to both of them, someone who may have quietly fueled the fire. Emotions ran high once again as fans started digging, speculating, connecting dots that may or may not have been there. The silence between Karlie and Jessica grew louder, heavier, and far more dangerous than any argument. Because sometimes the quiet aftermath is where the real damage begins. The rumor didn't stay a rumor for long. By morning, everyone had a theory, and by night, everyone had a suspect. Fans are shocked at how fast the narrative shifted from broken friendship to calculated setup. Jessica felt sick reading comments that hinted she had been played, that someone she trusted had been feeding her insecurities while smiling in Karlie's face. Emotions ran high as she replayed old conversations in her head, moments that suddenly felt staged, rehearsed, almost cruel. Meanwhile, Karlie wasn't sleeping either. She felt cornered, convinced this whole situation was spiraling out of control because Jessica refused to handle things privately. In her mind, the real betrayal wasn't gossip, it was public humiliation. She paced her house, phone buzzing nonstop, friends warning her that the internet had already made up its mind. The family was left divided again as even people close to her suggested she apologize just to calm things down. Karlie refused. She said apologizing would mean admitting to something she didn't do. Then came the message that changed everything. Jessica received a late-night text from someone she never expected, a mutual friend who claimed they couldn't stay silent anymore. The message hinted that Karlie had indeed repeated parts of their private conversations, but not in the way Jessica imagined. According to this friend, it started as concern, then turned into jokes, then slowly became gossip. Fans are shocked when this detail leaks, because it adds layers instead of answers. Jessica confronted the friend on the phone, voice trembling, asking why nobody stopped it. The friend broke down, admitting the group had normalized talking about each other behind closed doors. Emotions ran high as Jessica realized this wasn't just about one person, but about a culture she had unknowingly trusted. Still, in her heart, Karlie remained the center of the storm. Karlie, on the other hand, heard her own version of the story. Someone warned her that Jessica was gathering allies, painting her as the villain, preparing for a bigger public reveal. Panic mixed with anger. Karlie felt set up. She felt like every word she'd ever said was being weaponized. Fans are shocked when Karlie posts a cryptic message about fake loyalty and selective memory, igniting another wave of speculation. The silence between them shattered when they crossed paths unexpectedly. No cameras planned, no warning, just raw tension. The room went quiet. Jessica froze. Karlie rolled her eyes. Emotions ran high instantly. There was no polite small talk, no pretending. Jessica accused Karlie of lying to her face. Karlie snapped back, saying Jessica loved drama more than truth. Voices rose. Strangers stared. Friends pulled them apart before things got physical. Afterward, both women told completely different versions of what happened. Jessica said she tried to talk calmly and was met with arrogance. Karlie claimed Jessica came in aggressive and emotional. Fans are shocked at how polarized the reactions became, with video clips taken out of context and dissected frame by frame. The family was left divided yet again, with people choosing narratives instead of facts. Then another twist surfaced. An old interview clip of Karlie resurfaced, one where she casually joked about knowing everyone's business and never keeping secrets. At the time, it seemed harmless. Now, it felt damning. Emotions ran high as fans reposted the clip, saying it proved Jessica's point all along. Karlie felt betrayed by her own past words, insisting they were jokes, taken out of context. Jessica watched the internet turn into a courtroom. Part of her felt validated. Another part felt empty. This wasn't the win she wanted. She didn't want Karlie cancelled, she wanted accountability. Fans are shocked when Jessica posts a message saying she misses the friendship more than the peace, hinting that despite everything, she's still hurting. Behind the scenes, family members tried to intervene. Phone calls were made, meetings were suggested, but trust was too damaged. Every attempt at mediation turned into another argument about who started it and who made it worse. The family was left divided not just emotionally, but permanently. Some bridges burned quietly, others exploded on impact. And just when it seemed like nothing else could surface, a leaked voice note began circulating. The audio was grainy, but the voices were clear enough. Emotions ran high across social media as fans tried to identify who was speaking and what was being admitted. Some swore it was Karlie confessing to oversharing. Others believed it was edited, manipulated, fake. Karlie denied it immediately, calling it a setup. Jessica stayed silent, which only fueled the fire. Fans are shocked by the silence, reading into it as confirmation. The tension thickened, and the story took on a life of its own, growing bigger, messier, and more personal by the hour. By the end of the week, there was no friendship left to salvage, only questions. Who leaked what? Who lied first? Who benefited most from the chaos? Emotions ran high as everyone waited for the next move, knowing that whatever came next would either destroy what little trust remained or expose truths neither woman was ready to face. The silence after the leak was louder than any argument. Days passed, then weeks, and still neither side fully addressed the voice note. Fans are shocked by how avoidance became a strategy, how every vague post felt like a clue and every deleted story felt like an admission. Emotions ran high as supporters on both sides filled in the gaps themselves, turning assumptions into facts and opinions into verdicts. Jessica withdrew from public spaces, canceling appearances and ignoring calls. Those close to her said she felt exposed, embarrassed that something so personal had turned into entertainment. She replayed the past over and over, wondering where she missed the red flags. Trust issues surfaced that had nothing to do with Karlie and everything to do with old wounds. The family was left divided as some urged her to move on while others pushed her to finally tell her full truth. Karlie, meanwhile, went into defense mode. She doubled down on her innocence, telling anyone who would listen that she was being misunderstood and targeted. Emotions ran high in her inner circle too, with friends arguing over whether staying silent made her look guilty or smart. Some believed she should clear everything up once and for all. Others warned her that saying too much could make things worse. The pressure was relentless. Then came another unexpected twist. A former associate, someone both women had distanced themselves from long ago, suddenly resurfaced. This person claimed they had watched the friendship crumble in real time and knew exactly who crossed the line first. Fans are shocked when cryptic hints from this associate begin popping up online, suggesting that both Jessica and Karlie were victims of manipulation they never saw coming. Emotions ran high as speculation exploded again. Was there a mastermind behind the scenes? Someone who benefited from the chaos, who enjoyed watching two strong women tear each other apart. Jessica considered reaching out to this associate but hesitated, afraid of reopening wounds or being dragged into another trap. Karlie dismissed the claims publicly, saying washed-up voices were chasing relevance. Privately, doubt crept in for both of them. Jessica wondered if she had been too quick to assume malice instead of misunderstanding. Karlie questioned whether her casual sharing habits blurred lines she never meant to cross. But pride stood in the way of accountability. Neither wanted to be the first to soften. Fans are shocked at how ego became the final barrier between closure and chaos. The tension peaked when Jessica finally broke her silence in a long, emotional statement. Her words were careful but heavy, filled with pain rather than accusations. She spoke about loyalty, about trusting the wrong people, about learning that silence can hurt just as much as betrayal. Emotions ran high as fans dissected every sentence, debating whether it was a peace offering or a warning. Karlie responded within hours, clearly triggered. She accused Jessica of rewriting history and playing innocent while throwing stones with one hand and hiding the other. The family was left divided once more as mutuals begged them to stop before things turned irreversible. But the damage was already deep. Then, unexpectedly, a mutual friend stepped forward publicly, confirming that both women had been venting about each other long before the fallout. Fans are shocked by this revelation because it shattered the hero-villain narrative completely. Emotions ran high as people realized the truth might be messier than they wanted, that hurt doesn't always come from one side. This revelation hit Jessica hard. She felt embarrassed, realizing her pain wasn't as unique as she believed. Karlie felt vindicated but also exposed, knowing her denials now rang hollow. The family was left divided not by loyalty anymore but by disappointment. Nobody won. Attempts at reconciliation were rumored but never confirmed. Some said they met privately and cried. Others claimed lawyers shut everything down. What was clear was that the friendship they once had no longer existed in any recognizable form. Fans are shocked by how quickly love can turn into distance when trust is fractured beyond repair. As the drama cooled publicly, it burned quietly behind the scenes. Resentment lingered, apologies remained unsaid, and both women carried scars that no statement could heal. Emotions ran high one last time when an old photo of them resurfaced online, smiling, arms wrapped around each other, a reminder of what was lost. Because sometimes the hardest part of betrayal isn't the fight. It's realizing that even if the truth comes out, some friendships are never meant to survive it. Time didn't heal anything. It just changed the shape of the pain. Weeks turned into months, and while the internet moved on to the next scandal, the damage between them stayed fresh. Fans are shocked when both women slowly returned to public life, smiling for cameras, pretending everything was fine while the tension followed them like a shadow. Emotions ran high beneath the surface, hidden behind makeup and rehearsed laughs. Jessica tried to rebuild herself quietly. Therapy sessions replaced late-night phone calls. Journaling replaced group chats. She told herself forgiveness didn't require reconciliation, but some nights the anger still crept in. She remembered moments when she defended Karlie fiercely, when she shut down rumors without question. Now those memories felt heavy. The family was left divided in her own mind too, torn between missing what they had and protecting herself from ever feeling that exposed again. Karlie took a different route. She leaned into work, keeping busy enough to avoid thinking. Interviews became controlled spaces where she could redirect the narrative without fully addressing it. She spoke about growth, about learning who deserves access to you. Fans are shocked by how polished her responses sounded, how little emotion slipped through. Behind closed doors, though, she felt misunderstood and isolated, convinced she had lost more than anyone realized. Then fate stepped in again. Both women were invited to the same industry event. Separate confirmations, separate arrivals, same room. The air shifted the moment they locked eyes. Emotions ran high instantly. There was no yelling this time, no confrontation. Just a long, loaded stare that said everything words couldn't. People around them felt it. Whispers spread. Phones lifted discreetly. Jessica looked away first, her chest tight. Karlie smirked, not out of confidence, but defense. Fans are shocked when clips from the event circulate showing the tension in their body language, the stiffness, the avoidance. Once again, the past refused to stay buried. After that night, old wounds reopened. Jessica felt humiliated all over again, like the universe was testing her healing. She vented to a close family member, admitting she still didn't know if she was wrong or just hurt. The family was left divided emotionally, some urging her to finally let go, others validating her pain and reminding her why she walked away. Karlie, too, felt shaken. Seeing Jessica stirred emotions she thought were gone. Guilt surfaced in unexpected ways. Not for gossip or leaks, but for not handling things with more care. Emotions ran high as she admitted privately that maybe being right mattered less than being kind, but saying that out loud felt impossible now. Another twist came when a producer hinted at wanting both women on the same platform again. The idea alone sent shockwaves. Fans are shocked at the possibility, split between wanting closure and craving chaos. Jessica immediately declined, saying some chapters shouldn't be reopened. Karlie hesitated longer, tempted by the chance to defend herself fully. Rumors of negotiations leaked anyway, reigniting speculation. Emotions ran high as fans debated whether this would end in healing or total destruction. Old clips resurfaced. Old quotes were reposted. The past became present again. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Jessica admitted to a friend that part of her still missed Karlie, not the drama, but the friendship before everything went wrong. She wondered if pride had stolen their chance at peace. The family was left divided internally once more as she battled between self-respect and unresolved affection. Karlie, hearing through the grapevine that Jessica still struggled, felt conflicted. She wanted to reach out, to clear the air without cameras or agendas. But fear stopped her. Fear of rejection. Fear of reopening wounds. Fear of admitting fault in a story where blame had become a weapon. Time passed again, slower now. The public drama faded, but the emotional aftermath lingered. Fans are shocked when both women post separate messages about closure within the same week, each sounding eerily similar, as if they were speaking to each other without saying names. Emotions ran high as viewers sensed unfinished business. There was no reunion, no public apology, no dramatic final confrontation. Just two women moving forward with parallel scars, forever connected by a friendship that burned too bright and collapsed too loudly. The family was left divided in memory, in loyalty, and in lessons learned. Because sometimes the messiest endings don't come with explosions. They come with silence, distance, and the quiet understanding that some bonds, once broken, were never meant to be repaired. But the story didn't fully end there. Even after the silence settled, ripples kept spreading. Fans are shocked when subtle signs started appearing again, tiny breadcrumbs that suggested the wound was still open. A liked comment here, a quickly deleted story there. Nothing obvious, but enough to make people talk. Emotions ran high as viewers questioned whether healing was actually happening or if both women were just better at hiding the hurt. Jessica found herself growing more guarded than ever. New friendships came with walls, unspoken rules, and constant testing of loyalty. She smiled, she showed up, she worked, but something in her head shifted. She no longer gave people full access. The betrayal rewired her instincts. The family was left divided in her personal life too, with some loved ones worried she was shutting down emotionally, while others believed this new version was stronger and safer. Karlie faced her own consequences. Opportunities came, but trust didn't follow as easily as before. Whispers lingered in rooms she entered. People were polite but distant. Emotions ran high internally as she realized reputation damage doesn't always come with loud cancellation, sometimes it comes quietly, through changed energy and unreturned calls. She told herself she didn't care, but late at night, the weight of it pressed in. What hurt most for both of them was how similar their pain actually was. Both felt misunderstood, both felt betrayed, both believed they had been loyal in their own way. Fans are shocked when people close to them later admit that if pride hadn't taken control so early, things might have ended differently. But once the internet gets involved, ego becomes armor, and armor is hard to take off. Another unexpected moment reignited everything. An old unseen clip surfaced, recorded during happier times. Laughter, inside jokes, genuine affection. It wasn't dramatic, just human. Emotions ran high as fans watched it circulate, commenting on how real the bond once looked. For the first time in a long while, sympathy shifted from sides to sadness. Jessica saw the clip and cried. Not out of anger, but grief. Grief for what was lost, for the version of herself that trusted so freely. The family was left divided again as some urged her to finally reach out and others warned her not to reopen emotional wounds that took so long to close. Karlie saw it too. She stared at the screen longer than she expected. Guilt crept in, heavy and unwanted. Not guilt for being wrong, but for not fighting harder for the friendship before it turned into a public battlefield. Emotions ran high as she drafted messages she never sent, apologies she didn't know how to word, explanations that felt too late. For a brief moment, reconciliation felt possible. Not publicly, not dramatically, just two people talking. But timing is cruel, and fear is louder than hope. Days passed. Nothing happened. The moment slipped away. Fans are shocked at how this story never got a clean ending. No winners, no villains, just two women permanently changed by the same fallout. Emotions ran high whenever their names were mentioned together, even months later. Interviews avoided the topic, questions were deflected, but the tension never fully disappeared. What remained was a lesson written in silence. Trust is fragile, loyalty is subjective, and once a friendship becomes content, it rarely survives intact. The family was left divided in memory, with some choosing to remember the love and others unable to forget the damage. And so the story settled into its final form. Not as a headline, not as a confrontation, but as a cautionary tale. A friendship that burned bright, collapsed publicly, and left scars neither woman expected to carry for life. Fans are shocked not by how messy it became, but by how relatable it all felt. Because sometimes the real drama isn't the shouting or the leaks. It's the quiet realization that even the people who know you best can hurt you the deepest, and even when the noise fades, the impact stays. Even after everything, the story refused to die. It lived inside glances, in questions nobody dared to ask directly, in the way rooms shifted when both names were mentioned in the same sentence. Fans are shocked at how long the tension lingered, how a friendship that ended quietly still echoed loudly. Emotions ran high in moments neither woman expected, triggered by songs, places, memories that once felt safe. Jessica reached a point where anger finally gave way to exhaustion. She was tired of replaying arguments that would never be resolved. Tired of wondering if an apology would have changed the outcome. Tired of carrying a version of the past that no longer served her. She told herself closure didn't come from conversations, it came from acceptance. Still, some nights she caught herself drafting messages she never sent, wondering if honesty without blame could have saved something. The family was left divided internally as she tried to reconcile strength with softness. Karlie experienced a different kind of reckoning. The chaos had forced her to look inward in ways she avoided before. She began questioning how casually she treated trust, how often she blurred lines without meaning harm. Emotions ran high when she realized intentions don't erase impact. Privately, she admitted she could have handled things better, slower, with more care. Publicly, she stayed silent, knowing any confession would be twisted into ammunition. The irony was painful. Both women had learned the same lesson, alone. Both had grown in parallel, separated by pride and timing. Fans are shocked when people close to them later say their private reflections sounded eerily similar, like two sides of the same heartbreak speaking into different rooms. A final opportunity for closure almost appeared when a mutual acquaintance suggested a private sit-down, no cameras, no audience, no agenda. Just honesty. Jessica considered it seriously for the first time. She wasn't angry anymore, she just wanted peace. Karlie heard about it and felt the same pull, the same fear. Emotions ran high as both weighed the risk of reopening wounds against the relief of finally speaking freely. But the meeting never happened. Schedules conflicted, hesitation crept in, and just like before, silence won. Not out of hatred, but self-preservation. Sometimes walking away feels safer than facing what still hurts. As time moved forward, the narrative slowly changed. Less blame, more reflection. Fans are shocked when discussions shift from choosing sides to questioning how fame magnifies misunderstandings. How private pain becomes public spectacle. How friendships don't just break, they erode under pressure. Jessica eventually spoke about the situation in a general sense, never naming names. She talked about learning boundaries, about choosing peace over being right. Emotions ran high as listeners felt the maturity in her words. Some interpreted it as forgiveness. Others saw it as resignation. The family was left divided in interpretation, but united in recognizing her growth. Karlie, too, softened over time. She stopped deflecting and started listening. In rare moments, she acknowledged that things spiraled because nobody slowed them down. Fans are shocked by the subtle shift in her tone, the absence of defensiveness that once defined her responses. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to accountability she felt safe offering. In the end, there was no dramatic reunion, no explosive confession, no viral moment of reconciliation. Just distance, understanding, and the quiet knowledge that both were shaped by the same fallout. Emotions ran high one last time when a fan asked if they would ever be friends again. Both answered differently, but the meaning was the same. Some doors close not out of hate, but out of necessity. The family was left divided in memory, but united in one truth. The friendship mattered. That's why the loss hurt so much. What remains now is a story without villains or heroes. Just people, pressure, pride, and pain. Fans are shocked not by how it ended, but by how real it all feels. Because behind the drama, the accusations, and the noise, there was once genuine love. And that's the messiest part of all. Even now, the echoes of that friendship follow them in ways neither expected. Fans are shocked when old interviews resurface and suddenly take on new meaning, words that once sounded playful now feeling loaded. Emotions ran high as people replay moments that seemed harmless before the fallout, realizing how much context changes perception. What once looked like sisterhood now feels like a warning sign nobody noticed in time. Jessica learned to live with unanswered questions. She stopped searching for villains and started naming patterns instead. She recognized how easily vulnerability can be mistaken for weakness, how sharing too much with the wrong people can cost you more than silence ever could. The family was left divided in her heart, between the part of her that still believed in deep connection and the part that insisted on emotional distance for survival. Karlie, in her own way, carried regret she rarely spoke aloud. Not regret for defending herself, but regret for letting pride drive when patience might have softened the blow. Emotions ran high when she realized some losses don't come from one big mistake, but from a series of small choices made too quickly. She told herself growth doesn't always come with closure, sometimes it comes with restraint. Months later, a casual comment from a third party reignited conversation yet again. Nothing explosive, just a reminder that people love reopening old wounds when the cameras are gone. Fans are shocked at how quickly speculation returned, how eager the audience still was to assign blame. Emotions ran high as both women chose not to respond this time, a quiet but powerful shift from the chaos that once consumed them. That silence spoke volumes. It wasn't weakness, it was fatigue. Both had learned that defending yourself endlessly only feeds the fire. Sometimes the bravest move is stepping back and letting the noise burn itself out. The family was left divided in opinion, but the women themselves seemed more aligned than they had been in years, even without speaking. Jessica focused on rebuilding trust slowly, carefully. She stopped over-explaining herself. She stopped apologizing for boundaries. The pain had sharpened her instincts, and while it made her more cautious, it also made her more honest. Emotions ran high when she admitted to herself that the fallout, as devastating as it was, forced her to choose herself in ways she never had before. Karlie leaned into reflection. She paid closer attention to who she spoke to and how much she shared. She learned that being open doesn't mean being careless, and being private doesn't mean being cold. Fans are shocked when those close to her describe a calmer, more intentional version of her, shaped quietly by a very public lesson. What never fully disappeared was the mutual understanding that they had both been hurt. Not in identical ways, but deeply enough to leave marks. Emotions ran high whenever that truth surfaced, because it complicated the narrative everyone wanted to simplify. There was no single betrayal. There was miscommunication, ego, outside influence, and timing that couldn't have been worse. The family was left divided in memory, but united in one realization. Fame doesn't create drama, it magnifies it. Small misunderstandings become storylines. Private pain becomes public currency. And friendships that might have survived in silence collapse under a spotlight. Years from now, people will still ask what really happened. They'll expect a shocking answer, a secret revelation, a final confession. But the truth will likely disappoint them. It wasn't one moment, it was many. It wasn't one villain, it was human error layered with pressure and pride. Fans are shocked when they finally understand that some stories don't end with closure because real life rarely does. Emotions ran high because the bond was real, the fallout was real, and the consequences were real. Nothing about it was clean. And so the story rests where it always was. Not in accusations or receipts, but in the quiet space where trust once lived. Two women, changed forever, moving forward separately, carrying the same lesson in different ways. Because sometimes the hardest thing to accept isn't losing a friend. It's knowing that both of you were trying to protect yourselves, and in doing so, lost each other anyway. Long after the headlines faded, the emotional residue stayed behind. Fans are shocked when even years later, a simple mention of their names together still sparks debate. Emotions ran high not because people wanted drama, but because the story never gave anyone a clean answer. It lingered unfinished, like a conversation cut off mid-sentence. Jessica eventually understood that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant remembering without bleeding. She stopped replaying the worst moments and started honoring the good ones without letting them trap her in the past. The laughter, the trust, the late-night talks all mattered, even if they ended badly. The family was left divided in her reflections, but she chose peace over rewriting history. Karlie reached a similar place from a different path. She accepted that being misunderstood was part of her reality, but so was accountability. Emotions ran high when she admitted to herself that some things don't need public correction to be real lessons. Growth happened quietly, away from cameras, in choices nobody applauded. What both women never said out loud was how much the fallout reshaped their definition of friendship. Trust became something earned slowly instead of given freely. Loyalty became something proven over time instead of assumed. Fans are shocked when people close to them describe how guarded yet grounded they became, shaped by the same storm but in opposite ways. The story eventually stopped being about who was right and who was wrong. It became about what happens when pain meets pride under pressure. Emotions ran high because the bond was real, and real bonds don't dissolve without leaving marks. The family was left divided in memory, but united in one truth. Nothing hurts like losing someone who once felt safe. There was no final scene, no dramatic closure, no reunion to satisfy curiosity. Just two lives moving forward, carrying the same lesson in different forms. Fans are shocked not by the silence, but by how loud it once was. And maybe that's where the story truly ends. Not with forgiveness or blame, but with understanding. Sometimes friendships don't survive because both people are wrong, or because one is evil. Sometimes they don't survive because life, ego, and timing collide at the worst possible moment. Emotions ran high then. They settled now. What remains is a cautionary tale about trust, exposure, and the cost of turning private pain into public spectacle. The family was left divided, the fans were left debating, and the friendship was left in the past. Because some bonds aren't meant to be repaired. They're meant to be learned from. Even after all the growth and distance, there were moments when the past resurfaced without warning. A song on the radio. An inside joke overheard in passing. A familiar laugh across a crowded room. Fans are shocked at how something so small could still trigger so much emotion. Emotions ran high in those quiet moments, the ones nobody ever saw online. Jessica learned to sit with that discomfort instead of running from it. She accepted that some connections leave fingerprints on your soul, even after they're gone. She stopped asking why it happened and started asking what it taught her. The family was left divided in how they remembered the story, but she no longer needed agreement to feel grounded. Peace became personal, not performative. Karlie faced her own reminders. Certain places carried memories she couldn't rewrite. Certain questions from interviewers still felt loaded, even when asked gently. Emotions ran high internally as she navigated being both strong and reflective at the same time. She realized that moving forward didn't mean pretending the past never happened. It meant carrying it without letting it define her. What neither of them expected was how often other people refused to let the story rest. Fans are shocked when strangers still approach them separately, asking for clarity, for sides, for confirmation of rumors that never fully died. Emotions ran high in those moments, because reopening old wounds for someone else's curiosity felt unfair. Both learned to deflect gracefully, choosing silence over spectacle. Over time, the narrative softened. Fewer accusations, more nuance. People started to see the story not as a feud, but as a fracture. Two people who cared deeply, collided under pressure, and didn't know how to step back before it was too late. The family was left divided in opinion, but the tone shifted from outrage to reflection. Jessica eventually spoke one last time about the situation, indirectly. She said some relationships are mirrors, showing you parts of yourself you need to heal. Emotions ran high as listeners felt the honesty in her voice. She didn't sound bitter. She sounded resolved. That chapter no longer controlled her. Karlie, in her own way, echoed that sentiment later. She talked about lessons learned through loss, about how not every ending needs a villain. Fans are shocked by the maturity in her words, by how far the conversation had come from where it started. It wasn't an apology, and it wasn't a defense. It was acceptance. There was never a moment where they publicly acknowledged each other again. No shoutouts, no subtweets, no reconciliation post to satisfy curiosity. Just distance, respectful and permanent. The family was left divided in memory, but united in the understanding that some stories don't need to be reopened to be honored. What remains now is perspective. The realization that friendships can end without anyone being evil. That hurt can exist on both sides. That sometimes the loudest drama comes from the quietest misunderstandings. Emotions ran high because the connection was real, and real connections don't fade neatly. Fans are shocked when they finally stop asking who was right and start asking what went wrong. The answer is never simple. It rarely is, and so the story settles where it belongs. Not in blame, not in rumors, but in growth. Two women, shaped by the same fallout, choosing different paths forward. The friendship didn't survive, but the lesson did. Because sometimes the end of a relationship isn't about winning or losing. It's about becoming someone wiser than you were before it broke. Eventually, even the quiet moments began to change. The memories stopped cutting so sharply. The anger lost its edge. Fans are shocked when people close to both women notice the shift, the way their names no longer trigger tension but reflection. Emotions ran high once, but now they surfaced less often, softened by time and distance. Jessica reached a place where she could speak about trust without flinching. She understood now that vulnerability isn't a mistake, even when it's met with disappointment. She refused to let one broken bond convince her that openness was weakness. The family was left divided in how they processed the past, but she stood firm in her belief that loving deeply was never the problem. Karlie, too, settled into a quieter confidence. She no longer felt the need to correct every narrative or defend every silence. She accepted that people would believe what they wanted, and that her peace mattered more than public approval. Emotions ran high when she realized how much energy she once spent fighting perceptions instead of protecting herself. What surprised both of them most was how similar their emotional journeys turned out to be. Different reactions, different coping mechanisms, same destination. Acceptance. Fans are shocked when those who know them well say the fallout matured them in ways success never did. Loss taught lessons that applause never could. There were still moments of curiosity. Questions left unanswered. What if they had talked sooner? What if outsiders hadn't interfered? What if pride hadn't been so loud? Emotions ran high in those hypothetical spaces, but neither lived there for long anymore. The past became something to acknowledge, not revisit. The public slowly let go too. Fewer think pieces. Fewer heated debates. The story aged, losing its urgency but keeping its weight. The family was left divided in memory, but even that division softened. Time has a way of blurring sharp edges. Jessica focused on building connections that felt safe, slow, and honest. She stopped oversharing and started listening more. Trust became something she allowed to grow instead of forcing. Emotions ran high when she realized she was no longer afraid of being hurt. She was simply more aware of her worth. Karlie learned to be intentional with her words. She understood how easily casual comments could carry unintended consequences. Growth showed up in pauses, in choosing silence when speaking wouldn't heal anything. Fans are shocked when those around her describe a calmer presence, someone less reactive, more grounded. Neither woman ever publicly closed the chapter, but in their private lives, it was done. No resentment, no longing, just understanding. The family was left divided in interpretation, but the women themselves had found clarity. The story became less about drama and more about humanity. Two people navigating trust, fame, ego, and pain in real time. Emotions ran high because the situation mirrored so many real-life friendships that end without clear villains or clean endings. What remains is a reminder: not all breakups are romantic. Some of the deepest heartbreaks come from friendships that once felt unbreakable. Fans are shocked when they realize how relatable that truth is, how universal the pain turned out to be. And so, without ceremony or closure posts, the story finally rests. Not erased, not glorified, simply understood. Two women moving forward, carrying different memories of the same bond, shaped but not defined by its ending. Because sometimes the loudest lessons come from the quietest goodbyes. Even now, the absence of closure feels intentional. Like both of them understood that forcing an ending would cheapen what was once real. Fans are shocked when insiders say neither woman ever spoke badly about the other in private again. Emotions ran high once, but something shifted. Anger burned out, leaving behind awareness instead of resentment. Jessica reached a point where she could finally look back without flinching. She stopped editing the story to make herself look stronger or more right. She accepted her role in letting things escalate, in trusting too fast, in reacting instead of pausing. The family was left divided in how they remembered events, but she no longer needed validation to feel settled. Karlie came to her own reckoning quietly. Not through public statements, but through changed behavior. She stopped laughing off other people's vulnerabilities. She listened more than she spoke. Emotions ran high when she realized how often people mistake charisma for connection, and how easily boundaries can blur when attention is constant. What lingered between them wasn't hatred. It was unresolved understanding. Both knew the truth wasn't clean enough for a headline. It lived in nuance, in half missteps, in conversations that went a little too far and silences that lasted too long. Fans are shocked when they realize the drama wasn't fueled by malice, but by misalignment. As time passed, new stories replaced old ones. New friendships formed, new alliances shifted the spotlight. The family was left divided in memory, but the public slowly moved on. Still, every once in a while, someone would bring it up, and the reaction was always the same. A pause. A measured response. A boundary. Jessica learned that boundaries don't mean bitterness. They mean self-respect. She stopped feeling guilty for protecting her peace. Emotions ran high when she realized she no longer needed anyone to understand her side to feel whole. Healing stopped being something she worked on and became something she lived. Karlie learned that silence doesn't always mean avoidance. Sometimes it means wisdom. She accepted that explaining herself over and over wouldn't rewrite the past. Growth showed up in how she handled new conflicts, how she de-escalated instead of engaging. Fans are shocked when those close to her describe a woman far less reactive than before. The most surprising part was how similar their conclusions became, without ever speaking. Both learned that trust requires timing, not just intention. Both learned that fame magnifies flaws that might otherwise be survivable. Both learned that some relationships are meant to teach, not last. The family was left divided in interpretation, but united in one quiet truth. The friendship mattered. That's why it hurt. If it hadn't been real, it wouldn't have left such a mark. There was no final apology exchanged. No forgiveness post. No reunion moment designed for applause. Just two people choosing not to reopen something that no longer fit who they became. Emotions ran high once. Now they rested. Fans are shocked when they finally understand that the messiness wasn't the point. The transformation was. The story wasn't about who betrayed whom. It was about how quickly closeness can collapse when communication breaks and pride takes over. And so the narrative ends where real life often does. Without fireworks. Without closure. Just acceptance. Because sometimes the strongest ending is choosing not to continue the fight. And now it's your turn. After hearing everything that went down, after reliving the tension, the silence, the betrayal, and the unresolved emotions, the biggest question is still hanging in the air. Whose side are you really on? Or better yet, do you even think there is a side to choose? Fans are shocked not just by what happened, but by how relatable it all feels. Friendships ending without closure, trust breaking quietly, emotions running high long after the noise fades. As you sit with this story, think about how many times you've seen something similar in your own life. A bond that felt unbreakable, a misunderstanding that spiraled, pride that got in the way of honesty, the family left divided, friends forced to pick sides. And no matter who you believed, the ending still hurt. That's why this story hits so hard. It's not just drama, it's human. But here's where you come in. We want to know what you think. Do you believe this friendship could have been saved if someone spoke up sooner? Do you think silence was protection or punishment? Was accountability missing, or was the damage already done the moment things went public? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation doesn't end here. Your perspective matters, and trust us, everyone is reading. If this story made you feel something, if you caught yourself nodding along or getting frustrated or even feeling sad for both sides, make sure you show that support. Hit that like button because it tells us you want more deep dives like this one. Stories that go beyond headlines and into the emotional aftermath where emotions ran high and the truth isn't always clean. And if you're new here, don't just watch and disappear. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss when the next story drops. Because these aren't just stories about celebrities. They're reflections of real relationships, real mistakes, and real lessons that play out under a spotlight. Fans are shocked every time because no matter how famous someone is, the pain still looks familiar. Share this video with someone who loves messy reality drama, or better yet, someone who's ever lost a friend and never got closure. Let them know they're not alone. Let them know it's okay to feel conflicted, to feel like there were no winners, only growth. And before you go, ask yourself one last thing. If you were in that situation, what would you have done differently? Would you have spoken sooner? Stayed silent longer? Forgiven faster? Or walked away the same way? Leave that answer below, because sometimes the most powerful part of these stories isn't what happened to them. It's what it teaches you. This story may be over, but the conversation is just getting started. Make sure you're part of it.